Extended version, the Apocrypha complete scriptures not included in the original Ethiopian Bible. 515 scriptures, lost writings, not considered within the Ethiopian Bible. Translated to English by Edward Jones. A series we will make on if these are biblically historical or blasphemy against our holy word. Alright, introduction to this. Throughout history, numerous religious and spiritual texts have been forgotten, excluded from official canons, or deliberately concealed due to theological, political, cultural influence, like we've talked about many times. But also, let me not get off track. The 515 apocryphal books compiled by Edward Jones represent a monumental collection of these lost writings, an extraordinary archive of ancient wisdoms that offers unique insight into spirituality, history, and mystic traditions. Though labeled as apocryphal, these texts are far from insignificant. On the contrary, they preserve valuable teaching, hidden truths, and alternate narratives that have shaped human understanding of the divine, the cosmos, the destiny of the soul, from prophetic vision to historical chronicles, from the secret prayers to gospels omitted from the official scriptures. Every document within this collection expands our perception of religious and spiritual thought. Edward Jones has undertaken the remarkable task of not only recovering these texts, but also meticulously organizing, studying, and presenting them in a way that is accessible to scholars, historians, and those with a deep passion for spiritual exploration. This collection is not merely a list of forgotten books, it is an investigation to embark on a profound intellectual and mystical journey, uncovering insights that have preserved in silence for centuries. A journey through the lost scriptures. Among the most significant texts in the collection are the Apocalypse of Adam, Testament of Abraham, the Vision of Ezra, Book of Enoch, Book of Jubilees, Book of Gad, the Seer, the Book of God, the Mysteries of Heaven, the Odes of Solomon, the famous Kebra which chronicles the sacred history of the Ethiopian people. Additionally, this compilation includes apocryphal gospels, letters from early church fathers, liturgical prayers, Gnostic writings, and wisdom texts, all of which challenge conventional narratives and provide deeper perspectives on faith and spirituality. These writings explore a vast array of themes: the origins of the world and humanity, with creation and accounts that differ from traditional biblical stories, the lives and teachings of patriarchs and prophets, revealing details not found in canonical texts, prophecies and apocryphal revelations presenting mystical visions and predictions about humanity's future, Gnostic and philosophical teachings discussing the nature of divine knowledge and the relationship between spirit and matter, prayers and hymns preserved through generation of religious traditions. The importance of the Apocrypha. This term apocryphal is often misunderstood, carrying connotations of doubt or inadequacy. However, its original meaning simply refers to texts that are hidden or reserved rather than inherently false or misleading. Many of these books excluded from official canons not because they lacked spiritual value, but because they presented ideas that diverged from dominant theological interpretations. Despite their exclusions, these writings continue to influence spiritual thought, finding a place in alternative traditions. mystical movements that sought deeper understanding beyond institutionalized religion. Engaging with these texts allows readers to explore a new dimension of faith, question historical assumptions, and appreciate the riches of suppressed traditions, and also to discern if any of these are blasphemy. Edward Jones' dedication to the project stems from his desire to preserve, study, and make accessible this vast spiritual heritage. Every text in this collection has been carefully compiled, analyzed, and presented with its historical and theological context, equipping readers with the necessary tools to approach these writings with understanding and depth. This work is intended for those who wish to look beyond the official narratives, explore aspects of the religious history that have remained in the shadows, yet hold profound wisdom. It is invaluable to scholars of ancient religions, seekers of alternative spirituality, and anyone with insatiable thirst for knowledge. Reading through these 515 apocryphal books is not merely an intellectual pursuit, it is a journey through time and spirit. It's an opportunity to rediscover forgotten truths, be inspired by voices that sought divine wisdom beyond the confines of history, official records. Now, the journey begins. Are you ready to immerse yourself in these pages and uncover the hidden treasures of the apocryphal knowledge? Start with the one, the revelation that which Adam taught his son Seth in the 700th year, the apocalypse of Adam, saying, "Listen to my words, my son Seth. When God has created me out of earth, along with Eve, your mother, I went with her in a glory which she had seen in the aeon from which she had come forth. She taught me a word of knowledge of the eternal God, and we resembled the great eternal angels, for we were higher than the God who had created us, in the power with him, whom we did not know. Then God, the ruler of the aeons and powers, divided us in wrath. Then we became two aeons, and the glory in our hearts left us, and your mother Eve, along with the first knowledge that was breathed within us, and its glory fled from us and entered into great which had come forth, not from this aeon from which we had come forth, I and your Eve your mother, but it knowledge entered into the seat of great aeons. For this season I myself called you by the name of that man who in the seed of the great generation, or from whom it comes after those days, the eternal knowledge of the God of truth withdrew from me and your mother Eve. Since that time, we learned about dead things like men. Then we recognized the God who created us, for we are not strangers to his powers, and we served him in fear and slavery. And after these things, we became darkened in our hearts. Now I slept in the thought of my heart, and I saw three men before me, whose likeness I was unable to recognize, since they were not the powers of the God who created us. They surpassed glory and well, men, saying to me, Arise, Adam, the sleeping of death. Hear about the aeon and the seed of that man to whom life has come, who came from you, and from Eve, your wife. When I heard these words from the great man who were standing before me, then we sighed, I and Eve, in our hearts, and the Lord our God who created us stood before us and said to us, Adam, why were you both sighing in your hearts? Did you not know that I am God who created you? I breathed into you a spirit of life as a living soul. The darkness came upon our eyes. The God who created us created a son from himself and Eve, your mother. I knew sweet desire for your mother, for in the thought of I knew my sweet desire for your mother. Then the vigor of our eternal knowledge was destroyed in us, and weakness pursued us. Therefore the days of our life became few. for I knew that I had come under the authority of death. Now then, my son Seth, I will reveal to you things which those men whom I saw before me had first revealed to me. After I have completed the times of this generation, and the years of the generation have accomplished, then, slave, for rain showers of God the Almighty will be poured forth, so that he might destroy all flesh of God the Almighty, so that he might destroy all flesh from the earth on account of the things that it seeks after, along with those from the seed of the men into whom passed the life of knowledge which came from me and Eve your mother, from they were strangers to him. Afterward great angels will come on high clouds, and will bring those men into the place where the Spirit of life dwells. Glory there, come from heaven and earth. The whole multitudes of flesh will be left behind in the waters. Then God will rest from his wrath, and he will cast his power upon the waters, and he will give power to the sons and wives by the means of the ark along the animals whichever he pleased, and the birds of the heaven which he called and released upon the earth. God will say to Noah, whom the generation will call Deluclian, behold, I protected you in the ark, along with your wife and your sons and their wives and their animals and the birds of heaven which you called and released upon the earth. Therefore I will give the earth to you, you and your sons, in kingly fashion. You will rule over it, and you and your sons, and no seed will come from you of the men who will not stand in my presence in another glory, and they will become as the cloud of the great light. Those men will come who have cast forth from knowledge the great aeons and angels. They will stand before Noah and the aeons, and God will say to Noah, why have you departed from what I told you? You have created another generation so that you might scorn my power. And Noah will say, I shall testify before you, your might, that the generation of these men did not come from me or from my sons' knowledge. And he will, those men, bring them into the proper land and build them a holy dwelling place, and they will be called by that name and dwell there 600 years in knowledge of imperishability. And the angels of great light will dwell with them. No foul deed will dwell in their hearts, but only the knowledge of God. The Moab Then Noah will divide the whole earth among the sons, Ham, Joseph, and Shem. He will say to them, my sons, listen to my word. Behold, I divide the earth among you, but serve him in fear and slavery all the days of your life. Let not your seed depart from the face of God Almighty, and your son of Noah, my seed, will pleasing before you and before your power. Seal it by your strong hand and with fear and commandment, so that the whole seed which come forth from me may not be inclined away from you and God Almighty, but it will severe the humility and fear its knowledge than others. From the seed of Ham and Japheth will come 400,000 men, and enter into another land, and sojourn with these men who came forth from great eternal knowledge, for the shadow of their power will protect those who have sojourned with them from every evil thing and every unclean desire. Then the seed of Ham and Japheth will form 12 kingdoms, and their seed also will enter the kingdom of another people. Then will take counsel who are dead of the great aeons of imperishability, and they will go to Sakla, their god. They will go to the powers, accusing the great men who were in glory. They will say to Sakla, who is this power of these men who stood in your presence, who were taken in the seed of Ham and Japheth, with the number 400,000 men? They have been received into another aeon from which they had come forth. They had overturned all the glory of your power and dominion of your hand, for the seed of Noah through his sons has done all your will, and so have the power in the aeons over which you might rule, while both those men and the ones who are sojourners in the glory have done your will, but they have turned aside the whole throng. Then the God of the aeons will give them some of those who serve him. They will come upon the land where the great man will be, who will not be defiled, nor will be defiled by any desire, for their soul did not come from a defiled hand, but it came from a great commandment of an eternal angel. The fire and sulfur and asphalt will be cast upon these men, and fire and blinding mist will come over the aeons, and the eyes of the powers of the illuminators will be darkened in the aeons. And the aeons will not see them in those days, and the great clouds of light will descend, and other clouds of light will come down upon them with great aeons. Brassix and Sablo and Gamal will descend and bring those men out of the fire and wrath, and take them above aeons, and rulers of power, and take them away of life, and take them away aeons, dwelling places of the great. There with the holy angels and the aeons, the men will be like those angels, for they are not strangers to them, but they work in imperishable seed. Once again, for the third time, the illuminator of knowledge will pass by in great glory, in order to leave something of the seed of Noah and the son of Ham and Japheth, to leave himself fruitful, fruit-bearing trees, and he will redeem their souls from the day of death. For the whole creation that came from the dead earth will be under the authority of death, but those who reflect upon the knowledge of the eternal God in their hearts will not perish. They have not received spirit from the kingdom alone, but they received it from an eternal angel. Illuminator will come upon that is dead of Seth, and will perform signs and wonders and orders, to scorn the powers and their ruler. Then the God of the powers will be disturbed, saying, what is the power of man who is higher than we? And he will arouse a great wrath against the man, and the glory will withdraw and dwell in holy houses, which it has chosen for itself. And the powers will not see it with their eyes, for will they see the illuminator either. They will punish the flesh of the man upon whom the Holy Spirit came. Then the angels and the generations of the powers will use the name in air, asking, where did it in the air come from? Or where did the wounds of deception, which all the powers have failed to discover, come from? Now the first kingdom says of him that he came from a spirit to heaven. He was nourished in heaven. He received the glory of that one and the power. He came in the bosom of his mother, and thus he came to the water. And the second kingdom says about him that he came from a great prophet. And a bird came, took the child who was born, and brought him unto a high mountain, and he was nourished by the bird of heaven. And an angel came forth there. He said to him, he said to him, arise, God has given glory to you, He received glory and strength, and thus he came to the water. The third kingdom says of him that he came from virgin womb. He was cast out of his city, he and his mother. He was brought into a desert place. He was nourished there. He came and received glory and strength, and thus he came to the water. The fourth kingdom says of him that he came from a virgin. The fourth kingdom says of him that he came from a virgin. Solomon sought her, he and Pharselo and Sobal and his armies which had been sent out. Solomon himself sent an army of demons to seek out the virgin, and they did not find the one whom they sought, but the virgin who was given them. It was she whom they fetched. Solomon took her. The virgin became pregnant and gave birth to the child there. She nourished him on the border of the desert. When he had been nourished, he received glory and power from the seed from which he was begotten, and thus he came to the water. And the fifth kingdom says of him that he came from a drop from heaven. He was thrown into the sea. The abyss received him, gave birth to him, and brought him to heaven. He received glory and power, and thus he came to the water. And the sixth kingdom says that down to Aeon which is below, in order to gather flowers. She became pregnant from the desires of the flowers. She gave birth to him in that place. The angels of the flowers garden nourished him. He received glory there and power, and thus he came to the water. The seventh kingdom says of him that he is a drop, and he came from heaven to earth. Dragons brought him down to caves. He became a child. A spirit came upon him and brought him on high to the place where the drop had come forth. He received glory and power there, and thus he came to the water. The eighth kingdom says of him that a cloud came upon the earth and enveloped the rock. He came from it. The angels were above the cloud, nourished him. He received glory and power there. Thus he came to the water. The ninth kingdom says of them that there 9 muses, one separated away. She came to a high mountain and spent some time seated there, so that she desired herself alone in order to become Adronicus, Adronicus. She fulfilled her desire and became pregnant from her desire. He was born. The angels who were over the desire nourished him, and he received glory there and power, and then he came to the water. The 10th kingdom says of him, his God loved a cloud of desire. He begot him too in his hand, and cast upon the cloud above him some of the drop, and he was born. He received glory and power there, and thus came to the water. The 11th kingdom says that the father desired his own daughter. She herself became pregnant from his father. She cast him out in the desert. The angel nourished him there, and thus he came to the water. The 12th kingdom says of him that he came from 2 illuminators. He was nourished there. He received glory and power, thus came to the water. And the 13th kingdom says him that the birth of the ruler is a word, and the word received mandate there, He received glory and power, and thus he came to the water in order that the desire of those powers might be satisfied by the generation with the king over it says that God chose him from all the aeons. He caused the knowledge of the undefiled one of truth to come to be with him. He said, out of a foreign air, from a great aeon, a great illuminator came forth. He made the generation of those men whom he had chosen for himself shine, so that he could shine upon the whole aeon. Then the seed, those who will receive the name upon the water, and that of them all, will fight against the power, and a cloud of darkness will come upon them. Then the peoples will cry out with a great voice, saying, Blessed is the soul of those men, because they have known God with knowledge of truth. They shall live forever, because they have not corrupted by their desire, along with the angels, nor have they accomplished the works of the power, but they have stood in the presence of knowledge of God, like light that has come forth from fire and blood. But we have done every deed of the power seamlessly. We have boasted in transgression of all our works. We have cried out against God of truth, because all his works, eternal, these are against our spirits. For now we have known that our souls will die with death. Then a voice came to them, saying, Mashi, Makar, Manus, who are the holy baptism in the living water, why are you crying out against the living God with lawless voice and tongues without law over them? The soul's full of blood and foul deeds. You are full of works that are not of the truth, but your ways are full of joy and rejoicing. Having defiled the water of life, you have drawn it within the will of the powers to whom you have given to serve them. And your thought is not like of those men. When you persecute desire, the fruit does not wither, but they will be known up to the great aeons, because the words they have kept of God of the aeons were not committed to the book, nor were they written, but angelic beings will bring them, whom all the generations of men will know, for they will be on a high mountain upon a rock of truth. Therefore they will be named the words of imperishability and truth, for those who know the eternal God in wisdom and knowledge and teaching of angels forever, for he knows all things. These are the revelations which Adam made known to Seth, his son, and his son taught his seed about them. This is the hidden knowledge of Adam, which he gave to Seth, which is the holy baptism of those who know the eternal knowledge, through those born of the word of the imperishable illuminators, who came from the holy seed, Jesus, Mazurus, Yesedukis, the living water. I'm going to give time for this to digest, give a follow-up video on my opinion of the beginning of our journey through these 515 books together. God bless all.